Dave Seeley made a number of the covers for the Star Wars books that were released in the mid-2000s, but I think that his cover of Medstar II Jedi Healer is one of my favorites. It depicts a Jedi Padawan Barriss Offee using the Force to heal a clone trooper, and it is heavily inspired by Michelangelo's statue of the Pieta, which depicts the Virgin Mary holding the body of Jesus. I think knowing that the cover art has a real-world analog makes it even more interesting to me, the way that Seeley is playing with a very famous piece of art from our own world, but putting it in the Star Wars universe. Like with Medstar I Battle Surgeons, I had very good memories of Jedi Healer and was interested in revisiting it since I remembered liking it, but it had been years and years since I reread it. So, a brief summary. As the Republic and the Separatists battle for control of the Bota plant on the jungle planet of Drongar, the doctors and nurses of Rimsu 7 face their own conflicts as well. Barriss Offee faces her greatest challenge yet, as she discovers that the Bota holds innumerable power for Force-sensitive individuals. But little do any of them know that a traitor lurks in their ranks. So Jedi Healer picks up pretty much where Battle Surgeons let off. At the end of Battle Surgeons, Zan Yant died as they were evacuating the Rimsu to a new location, so we have a new surgeon here, sort of like a Doogie Howser boy genius surgeon in the form of Uli Divini, a 19-year-old surgeon who's originally from Tatooine. This was one bit where it seems like loads of people are from Tatooine, and if it really were the farthest from the center of the universe, would we really see that many people from it? Anyway, Uli comes, he's a nice chap, he has some good conversations with Barriss. The journalist Dhur continues to try to dig up dirt that could make an interesting story that he could send back home. Jos and Tolk are in a relationship, but the appearance of Jos's great uncle as their commanding officer leads to some problems within their relationship. The droid I-5 slowly begins to get his memories back at the same time that Dhur is really obsessed with getting I-5 drunk. The Nedij Kaird, who works for Black Sun, is still here, still doing things, still scheming. I felt like this part was less important, but we'll get to that. We have some visiting entertainers who come to amuse the troops. And of course, there is still a traitor who is working for both Black Sun and the Separatists within the ranks of the people on Rimsu 7. So as with the first book, I would say that the majority of the plot involves Jos, involves Barriss, and I think involves Dhur, the journalist. Uli's here, but we get to know him even less well than we got to know Zan Yant. We know that he's this prodigy young surgeon, that his mother is a famous entomologist, and that's pretty much it. I wish that Uli's character could have been better used here because he has some good conversations with Barriss, but he doesn't interact with the others really in the same way that Zan did. He doesn't join their sabacc game until towards the end of the story. It seems like his age is his defining characteristic, and at the same time his age excludes him from the rest of the group, which I thought then was an interesting choice. Like, why make him this young whiz kid if you're not going to have him interact much outside of the operating theater with those around him? If Jos Vondar's internal conflicts in the first book had been coming to terms with whether he wants to pursue a relationship with Tolk, as well as realizing that his concept of the clones was absolutely wrong, we drop the latter in this book, and it's mainly just his relationship with Tolk. His great uncle appears. His great uncle is their commanding officer up on the Medstar, and he was someone who's been excommunicated from their insular group. That years ago he married someone who was extra, he was kicked out, and he doesn't want Jos to go through the same thing that he went through. So he meddles, and the end result is that Jos and Tolk pretty much break up. They're not communicating for a lot of the story, and it's not till the end that Jos realizes that his uncle had intervened in things that he doesn't want him to intervene, and then they're all happy and reunited, and his uncle's gonna do everything he can for them, and it's okay. It's just, I guess I wasn't expecting so much of Jos's arc to be relationship drama. I thought that after book 1, it would have been concluded, but I guess since there was a second book, we had to come up with something else, and so there's this breakdown of his relationship with Tolk. And again, Tolk is not anyone that we get her viewpoint, so she stops talking to Jos, she wants to take a break, and we have no idea what her reasoning is at all because we're never within her head. There also comes a point where Barriss is trying to figure out who the spy is, and Tolk is one of the options. I guess because we were never in her head, but I'll get to that later, how I felt the resolution of who the spy could be once we finally get to it had to be a certain character, or this would not have ended the way it did. Dhur is still trying to find the big story that will really make his name in the journalistic world. He had some good stories in the first one, but one of them he couldn't run with because it was dangerous, and the second one was really twisted until it made Fo Jai out to be the hero of Drongar rather than this man who is indiscriminately killing. Here, Dhur is one of the first people to learn that Bota is losing its potency, that since the plant is adaptogenic, it is slowly starting to evolve and lose its medical goodness. And this could be a huge story, but at the same time, as the stories progress, Den has started to develop a conscience, and he realizes that if he runs this story, then everyone will know that they're going to be fighting a useless battle here. The separatists will try to take everything, and he doesn't want to put his friends at risk. He also has a romantic plotline with one of the entertainers that come and then are stuck on Drongar, a Celestin lady named A.R. Marath. She wants him to return to Celeste and set up some family group. I don't know. I guess the Celestins are like polygamous big family groups. And Dhur initially is okay with the idea, but as time progresses, he realizes that he's not ready to become an elder to stop doing what he's doing. Barriss, in the beginning, thinks that she will now be transferred from Drongar to somewhere else because the Bota shipments going awry has stopped with the death of Philba the Hutt and Admiral Blade. But her master tells her that she needs to stay on Drongar, that she's there for a reason. So Barriss is trying to figure out what that reason is. And through an accident, she discovers that Bota, the miraculous antibiotic, has a strange side effect for Force-sensitive individuals, which is that it opens them up to the power of the Force. And Barriss has this vision of the entire galaxy and what's going on around her in a way that she never has before. So the Barriss's main conflict is, should she continue to use the Bota to try to gain these insights? It seems to grant immeasurable power, but is that something that she should be pursuing? Is this right? And as we get towards the end, Barriss starts to realize that her compulsion to use the Bota is like an addiction, and that perhaps this is what the dark side is, not doing evil things, but thinking that you're doing the right thing and doing it in a selfish manner, and that in thinking that the Bota grants immeasurable power, that she can solve all of the wrongs, she's building herself up to be something that she's not, and something that is very dangerous to pursue. I do think that this plotline with Barriss's Bota addiction maybe would have worked more effectively for me if it had been in more of the book. As it is, she doesn't accidentally inject herself with the Bota until halfway through Jedi Healer. So I wonder if this was something that had happened in the first book. Maybe Zan Yant brought her in on his clandestine treatment of troopers, and then her accident happened, so that this was something that she struggled with longer, would have made it feel less rushed to me and more like a natural progression. Because as it was, Barriss is sent to Rimsu 7 to investigate why the boat is going missing, and she doesn't really investigate that at all. And then here, she's just here helping until partway through she accidentally takes a dose of Bota. And so I just think if this had been something that had happened in book 1, it would have felt like it could be fleshed out in even more detail so that her revelation didn't feel quite so rushed to me. I-5's plot is recovering his lost memories and then getting drunk. He recovers his lost memories, so he knows that Lord had told him, hey, if anything happens to me, you need to look out for my son. So I-5 wants to go back to Coruscant and keep an eye on Jax Pavin. And he does get drunk. He writes a program for himself to make himself behave like he's drunk, and his arm is ripped off by a Wookiee. It's very silly. However, I do really appreciate seeing I-5 again. He's just such a good character. Like, I love droids that have their own personality, and in I-5's case, probably his own sentience, that he is a distinct individual in and of himself, even though he's a droid. And then on the bad guy front, we have Kaird the Nedij, who's still here, trying to set up operations so they can steal more Bota. So he sends for a Feline woman and a Barn man who are going to infiltrate the Bota production and make sure that a bit of it is being sent off to Black Sun. Kaird's plotline feels singularly useless to me here. The only reason I think he's here is so that he can be the first one to discover that Bota is rapidly losing its potency. But then when that happens, he's like, well, I'm gonna get as much out as I can. And then the duo backstab him and gave him a bomb instead of Bota. And he's like, I'll get my revenge. And I was like, okay, he's gonna get his revenge. And he doesn't. We don't see him again for the rest of the book. I'm not sure. I'm guessing he'll probably appear again in Reeves's subsequent trilogy, Coruscant Nights, but it just felt very unsatisfying to me. We have this villainous character going around doing villainous things, but they're useless. And it did make me wonder why kill off Blade in the first book in the first place, other than to have Jos's uncle appear and cause mayhem with his relationship with Tolk. Like, the bad guy situation in these books are very confusing to me. And the spy continues to do villainous things. The Separatist has the spy go up to Medstar and set off an explosion. And then it seems that there are only 2 possible candidates who could be the spy, because only 2 people from the Rimsu were on the Medstar at that time. And it was the Aquani minder, Chloe Merritt, and Tolk le Trene, the nurse who is Jos Vondar's girlfriend. And as soon as that accident happens, Barriss knows that it was sabotage. But then there's like nothing. She's not investigating anything. It's just like, that was sabotage. And it's not till close to the end that she's like, oh, there's only 2 people it could be, because I can't see inside their minds. And I'm like, Barriss, why didn't you do this earlier? Like, again, why wasn't Barriss working to figure out who the spy was earlier on than, like, right around the time of her conclusive Bota revelations? Because it just seems like the ball got dropped. And I'll get to this in the issues bit, but we do find out who the spy is. The spy is confronted and the spy is taken out. So I think my biggest issue with Jedi Healer is that it unfortunately did not hold up for me as well as the first book did. I thought the first book did a really good job of incorporating humor, but also incorporating these really cool revelations into the Clone Wars because we were looking through characters' eyes who weren't your typical Jedi or clone troopers or commanding officers, that we were seeing the Clone Wars through Jos's eyes and through Dhur's eyes and through a Padawan's eyes. And the realizations they came to were interesting and really added a dimension to the Clone Wars that we hadn't seen thus far. But then in the second book, Jos's dilemma boils down to, my girlfriend's not talking to me, why? Barriss's dilemma is, should I keep using this drug or not? And Dhur's dilemma is less, should I run this story which may have grave consequences for my friends, and should I follow this lady back to my home world? And like, I didn't feel like I got the same insights into things that I did in the first book. And I think part of it was, yeah, the villain problem, that by the second book, we only have 2 villains. One of them is useless. I mean, doesn't really seem to be doing much to affect the story. I think that maybe if someone had been actively working to make the Bota ineffective, but it's not, it just naturally evolves to be that way. And then with the spy, the way the dilemma with the spy is set up, it can either be Tolk, which means that we're not going to have a happy ending. Jos's heart is absolutely going to be broken. Everyone around them is going to be like, but we trusted her, but we loved her. So it can't be Tolk. Tolk is presented as one of the options, but no way is it going to be Tolk. Which then means that it has to be Clo Merritt, the Ikwani Minder. So then we're left just wondering, why? When we're in the viewpoint of the spy, we know that something happened to make the spy hate the Republic. But we don't know what that is. And of course, we don't find out what that is until Jos confronts Clo Merritt at the end, and Clo Merritt has like a villain monologue where he's like, I'm doing this because the Republic killed my world. Yes, that's the thing. They were testing, I guess, what was the laser for a very early prototype Death Star, and they shot it into the sun of his planet, and it like sent off a blast that incinerated his world. And so the only people who've survived are the people who were off-world at the time. So understandably, he hates the Republic. But I wish that maybe that could have come out within the story itself rather than him villain monologuing it to Jos. Like, maybe if Barriss was actively investigating who the spy could be, other than saying, hey, there's a spy, and then dropping it so that she could be obsessed with Bota. Like, you can do both. And maybe she could uncover, or she could bring Dhur into this, and he could uncover that Clo Merritt's planet was supposedly it was a natural disaster, but actually digging into it, it was this Republic military mishap, and then they could start to suspect him, because as it is, it's like, it's gotta be him, because it's not Tolk, and we're not given any other options, but we don't know why, and then we find out why, and then he's dead. So, conclusion. Like, that was very disappointing to me. So, in short, did I enjoy Jedi Healer as much as I enjoyed the first book, Battle Surgeons? No, I didn't. I think it was because the villains were very disappointing in this one, and I felt like some of the arcs would have been better if they had been sustained through both book 1 and book 2, because as it was, Barriss's Bota addiction felt very rapid and abbreviated. There were some good moments in here, there were some humorous moments in here, like I really enjoyed Barriss's interactions with Uli Divini, and I loved getting to see I-5 again, but on the whole, I felt like this story just didn't work as well for me as the first one did. So next time I'm going to be reading, yes, another Clone Wars book, this one about Anakin Skywalker, but also featuring Nejah Halcyon, Jedi Trial by David Sherman and Dan Cragg.